Review, where college professors talk film, providing insight, not assigning homework. I'm your host, Jen Sopchak-Bankard, and I'm here with two teachers who do not think they're fit for space. Usually that's like a stretch, whatever I have to say in that spot, but today it's so real. First, he's never done a spacewalk. He can't even moonwalk. It's PT McNiff. How's it going, PT?
Meryl Streep, she can do anything. I'm doing well, Jen. How are you?
I'm doing great. That was not wistful enough for my taste.
That's fair.
Could have been more. And he looked beautiful when he eats. It's Greg Cass. How's it going, Greg?
Grumpy, angry, stupid. How long since last sleep? Question. I'm good, Jen. Good to see you. I love that we decided to do our late night recording spot just so I could use that quote perfectly.
Yeah, I was going to say the answer to that is too long statement. Dear listeners, those were all references to the film we are here to review today, Project Hail Mary, which just opened in theaters last weekend. The film has been adapted from a novel of the same name by Andy Weir that you may recall as the author of The Martian, which screenwriter Drew Goddard also adapted into a hit film in 2015. That's Matt Damon growing potatoes for those of you who need your memories jogged. We have different directors this time around, Phil Lord and Chris Miller, the creative team that brought us the Lego movie, but more infamously got fired from Solo, a Star Wars story in 2017. And let me tell you, a lot of people are like, maybe that was a mistake. Yeah.
I will say, Jen, some Jump Street erasure here. Not thinking about 21 or 22 Jump Street.
I was trying to make it more concise, and I haven't seen those movies, so I didn't know if I'm supposed to mention those.
Technically, the last movies they directed was 22 Jump Street. They didn't
they
direct the Lego movie sequel, so I think 22 Jump Street came after that. Anyway, sorry.
And wait, they just only produce on the Spider-Verse movies?
Yes.
Okay.
So if you go to their Wikipedia page, it's like Lego movie, the Jump Street movies, and then a long gap where it's like they're just producing tons of stuff, and then this,
including Solo.
I think. Well, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anyway,
it's been like 11 or 12 years. Anyway, sorry.
Wow.
We're making it long.
It's okay. Ryan Gosling stars as Dr. Ryland Grace, a middle school science teacher whose dissertation comes back to haunt him. Again, like too real. This is hitting too close to home for us. When scientists discover that the sun is dimming and as a result, the Earth may soon face a mass extinction event. LTR fave Sandra Hüller co-stars as Ava Stratt, the shadowy government official that tries to recruit him. So that is sort of, we're setting the scene. Hopefully we got you excited, interested if you haven't seen this movie yet. If you are listening to us for the first time, we will have a spoiler-free section designed for those who have not yet seen Project Hail Mary, and then with a very clear alert, we will shift into spoiler mode for the rest of the show. I will say that there's kind of an added layer of spoileriness potentially, because there is kind of like a big reveal if you haven't seen any of the marketing materials, but a lot of people are choosing to be like, but it was in the trailer and all the ads. Like, how could you not have known about this? And so we're just going to talk about it. So I just want to add that warning that we may reference what you've seen in a lot of the commercials and promotional materials for this movie. But if you are purposely avoiding all of that because you don't want any kind of spoilers, then this may be a dangerous episode for you. Does that sound right? Like, does it?
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct.
PT, if listeners think we're mission ready after listening to this episode, what can they do?
If the consensus here is that it would be preferable if we did not die, then please follow the Long Take Review wherever you get your podcasts. We host the feed on Jen's Substack at thelongtake.substack.com, but you can also find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Overcast, YouTube, and many more. Wherever you're listening right now, you can always find us there. You can also follow us on social media. We are on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at The Long Take Review. You can also find us on Letterboxd. You can search for the account, which is at LTRpod, or you can use the hashtag LTRpod to see what each of us individually has been watching. Jen?
Thanks, PT. So as always, we're going to start with a short take. What did everybody think about Project Hail Mary?
I want to refer listeners to a previous episode where I described my sad, lonely Friday night where I saw the documentary shorts, and tell you that I had the complete opposite of that for this movie, and it was really, really wonderful. So ahead of Project Hail Mary, my son had seen the couple trailers. He's 11, and I was like, let's do it, buddy. Let's go. And so he and I had opening night tickets. We didn't go to one of the special preview screenings just because it was Oscar weekend and I had to be on the show a lot. So he and I went real opening night. We got the silly popcorn bin. We got a disgusting amount of Five Guys French fries right beforehand. And we hit and had a wonderful time. So we both loved this movie. I am giving this a very strong recommend. I think this is a real kickoff to like summer fun movie season coming out of my beloved sad Oscar months. And so, I strongly, strongly recommend this. And I think it's it's probably the first time I've really loved Ryan Gosling in a role. I certainly liked Ken, but Ken's a bit much. I recently showed my daughter I'm Just Ken in isolation, and boy, is that weird in isolation. But he's fantastic in this. I think it's a real powerhouse performance. As Jen mentioned, Sandra Hüller is just incredible and will always be an incredible LTR winning actress, I believe, or at least nominated. So I have nothing but good things to say about this. You'll have a really good time. And the thing could talk about, but I'm not talking about, is really, really well done. PT, what did you think?
I think we are talking about it because I warned everybody that we'd be talking about it, right? Because it's not a spoiler because it's like been everywhere. It's hard to step into the internet without seeing.
The people marketing the movie decided it's not a spoiler because they put this in everything.
Rocky is awesome. Rocky is a good old-fashioned Neil Scanlon creature. It's done largely practically, and I think it shows. I think a lot of credit goes to Mark Hamill for making Yoda believable in Empire Strikes Back, and this is the exact same thing, that Ryan Gosling completely sells you on this little creature, and it's really impressive. There's a little creature. All right, PT, what did you think?
There's a little creature. That's almost enough to say how lovely. I also had a great time with this movie. This was very fun. We didn't see it opening night. We didn't get to it until the Sunday of opening weekend, but we did get to go to the Vista Theater here in LA, which is one of the ones showing it in 70 millimeter. And it was a Sunday afternoon, mid-afternoon, and it was packed, and it was, I wouldn't say exclusively packed with children, but there were a lot of children, to the point where I was like, this is not an R-rated movie, right? Is this even a PG-13 movie?
It's PG-13.
Okay. Well, the parental guidance was suggested, and a lot of parents were like, my 6 to 10-year-old can definitely go, because there were a lot of them there. But they seemed to have a great time. I had a great time. Jasmine had a great time. She said it healed a part of her soul that she didn't know needed to be healed. And yeah, when we will talk about the kind of movie that it is, but it's a well done, fun. It was sometimes very funny, sometimes pretty poignant movie about space people being in space and interacting with each other and trying to help each other, and that's great. And there's a little guy, and the little guy is awesome. So we love the little guy, and we love his practical puppet, and that he's voiced by the same performer who puppeteered him, which is also lovely. That's great. It, similar to the Frank Oz being Yoda, it's just like, it feels like a real complete performance, and made a very believable being for Ryan Gosling to interact with, and also a believable creature that's not of Earth, but still seemed like, yeah, this is a creature we could connect with and care about. And we'll discuss Ryan Gosling. And I mean, I have liked him more, I guess, than Greg in the past, because I have liked him in other movies. I've bought in on Ryan Gosling before, but yeah, I think this is a big sort of level up movie star. Like, he has to run this whole movie. He's like, I'd say, 70% of this movie is either just him or just him and a puppet, and he's nailing it. Like, he's doing incredible. So it was a really good time. Jen, what do you think?
You guys, this movie is so precious to me. It really is. It's as if they took a movie projector and stuck it behind my heart and then just like shined the whole thing onto the screen. Like, it was I loved every bit of this, and it made me so happy. I had a feeling I would like this because I love The Martian. It's one of my favorite movies. But even then, this like totally took me by surprise in terms of how it stole my heart. And like, it's much cuter than I was expecting. And to me, that's a huge plus. And it just like I think it just hit every note that it needed to hit for me. And the premise is so dystopian and yet it is so hopeful. I think it looks gorgeous. We haven't mentioned that yet. Like the effects in this and the cinematography, Greg Fraser, Oscar winning Greg Fraser for Dune did an amazing job. And it's like a beautiful space movie. I think we're kind of inching towards recommendation algorithm. So maybe we should switch into that. But this movie made me so happy and I'm excited to talk about it for an extended period of time because it made me so happy. Rocky Forever. It's so good.
With the fading of Antonio movies in our show lore, we should raise Gen Core up, which is like cute in a like undeniable way. So we probably Flow is the most Gen Core movie we've seen in the run of the show, and then would this rival Flow, you think?
Yeah, I mean, like they're it's a constellation, right? Like, so they're neighboring stars. To use the nomenclature of the movie. Healthy and alive stars, not dying stars. Right?
Sure.
But also
it depends on the week.
But the other component of this too that made me super happy and was like seems like it was made for me. If folks remember our Oppenheimer review, it's weird that I'm like the English major that on the inside is actually like a physics nerd, and the science aspect of this just made me incredibly happy. There's nothing I love more in a movie than seeing somebody smart doing smart things and figuring things out, and that's essentially what this whole movie is. So yeah, I think it's hit it. Yeah, the Gen Core is a good way to put it. And I didn't know. So I managed to avoid. I don't know how. I managed to avoid all the marketing spoilers, and I hadn't watched the trailer for the movie. Partly because I was like, well, I know it's made by the author of The Martian, so like I think I'm gonna like it, so I don't need to know anything else. And I did start reading the book before I saw the movie, but I didn't get far enough into the book before I now I'm far enough. I'm about halfway through the book. So I can half participate in book club part of this.
I was going to say, weren't you reading the book? But that's the answer is you didn't get far enough into the book.
I didn't get far enough for it to be spoiled. Yep. But then it was weird because like after I saw the movie and came back to the book, then I suddenly knew where it was going, and then I was like, oh, this is weird. Because I'm like, oh, this must be what it's like for everyone else to watch the movie. But anyway, so let's go into we've already started like dipping into it, but let's go to recommendation algorithm, in which we establish the audience of a film. So this segment acknowledges that not every film is for everyone. As we've said, this is very Gen Core, might not be you core, a listener. So Greg was so generous to prepare the outline of questions for us today. So he's starting with the most obvious comparison, and I mentioned it already, is to The Martian. Like how good a reference is that? Like, how much does this compare to that movie, do you think?
I think it does. And it's not just because of Andy Weir and Drew Goddard wrote the book and the screenplay, respectively, for both. But the idea of a solo person kind of stuck in space, trying to figure out what's going on, and save the day. The day that's being saved is a little different in each sort of iteration. The one thing I'll say that if you're somebody who is like, I like my movies to be realistic and I do not like things that are fanciful or fantastical, then that could be a problem in this movie that maybe wouldn't be as much in The Martian. Like The Martian is like,
agreed,
it's not real because we don't have people who can go to bars yet, despite promises to the contrary. Over the course of the last decade and a half, we haven't gotten there yet, but once you sort of agree, okay, someone could be there, it feels like everything else is very rooted in science and physics and biology and the systems that we have to try to work together on Earth, and also Matt Damon working in space. Whereas this movie has like much more sort of out there stuff, literally and figuratively. So that could be an issue, but I think in general, if you liked The Martian, you should watch this movie, but you might like one more than the other. I think I like this one more than The Martian. I like The Martian quite a bit, but I think I enjoyed this more. Maybe that's recency bias, but yeah, I think that's a good start. The other thing I will add, beyond generally space movies where it's like ships moving in space, trying to solve problems in space. meeting aliens in space, like all of those things. If you like that, of course you'll like this. It also is, and I think this is sort of to Jen's part of the Gen Core physics nerdiness thing. It's very much like a competency porn movie where it's like, this is someone who whatever a crisis of conscience or confidence he has in his own abilities is like, I'm going to solve this problem, and other people are like, we're trying to solve our problems, and we're going to try to make this work and do this. And so I feel like, weirdly, even though this one's way more, even more realistic than The Martian, I kind of was seeing like Apollo 13 as a comp, because again, space movie, spaceship problems, and people on the ground trying to do some things, and people up in space trying to solve their problems. So again, if you can handle it being a more fantastical story than that, I think that if you like that kind of movie, or really just any of those movies where it's like, it's just people doing a good job. Like, everyone's just trying their best. No one's an enemy because they're screwing things up. Everyone is just like doing the best they can and correcting things when it's not going well. Greg, what do you think for recommendations?
Well, how dare you raise the specter of Apollo 13? Because Lord and Miller just heard Ron Howard invoked and got scared that he's going to spin and steal this one away.
Hail Mary, a project story.
Yeah, I mean, I actually when my son showed some interest at an early Project Hail Mary trailer, we showed him The Martian just to see like how it works. And I would say I remembered enjoying that movie at the time. I missed it in theaters, which may be because my son had been born around that time. I'm not exactly sure why I missed it in theaters, but I had seen it before and had enjoyed it. And then my wife also remembered enjoying it, and the three of us all enjoyed it. What's funny is, I would say maybe one complaint I have is that this gets a little baggy in the third act, and I'd forgotten how baggy The Martian gets in the third act, right? That like, it really, you're kind of all on board, and then they're like, and here's 5 more problems, and you're like, oh really? Like, okay, that's about The Martian, just to be very clear. But I do think that the key to Andy Weir is to remember that he's a really nerdy guy who's a science blogger who decided to write fiction to kind of play with the ideas. And so while my beloved Steven Spielberg's E.T. is about the interaction between an alien and a human, this is much more of like really trying to game out how a smart person would science their way through those first interactions with an alien species. So for me, it's science over heart, and I think that's what you have to get on board with. But that's exactly the brand of The Martian too. Book world is in an uproar because Andy Weir, of course, has a book in between The Martian and Project Hail Mary with a female protagonist that he wrote exactly like his male protagonist, and he has said some problematic comments lately about like, nobody thinks she's believable because people say women don't act like that, but she acts like me, so she's believable. And it's like, all right, dude. So he's in hot water over on book social media at the moment for some boneheaded comments. But I do think in general he has crafted another really likable character. So as long as you're on board for that brand that Matt Damon brought, I think you're gonna enjoy this. And other comps, the only other one that came to mind, and I dropped this somewhere later in the outline. I kind of had forgotten Gravity existed. And then I was reminded in space of like, oh, right, there's a really cool Alfonso Cuarón movie that is kind of, I don't know, that feels like a little lost to time. It's it was a big deal when it came out. It was a hit and it was an Oscar movie, but I don't hear anybody ever talking about Gravity anymore. But it's got a lot of that same kind of flavor.
I was going to say, it feels like Gravity has the Avatar problem, which is that you need to see it on a big IMAX screen for it to be like moving. And if you watch it at home, you're like, yeah, okay, they're in space, that's fine. And the flaws that were in the movie are much more apparent, where you're like, I don't know what's going on with this character, like what's happening. But whereas if you saw it on a big screen, you're like, wow, like I'm blown away by this. So I feel like Gravity is one of those movies that will get re-released in IMAX some downtime, and everyone will be like, oh my god, everyone remember why did Gravity not win Best Picture? This is crazy. And then like 2 months later, they'll forget about it again.
I was going to say, didn't we take away Alfonso Cuarón's Oscar?
That sounds right. I think we gave it to Martin Scorsese for The Wolf of Wall Street, which was a great move made by me. and I feel great about it.
Well, and Gravity's also an early like oneer movie, right? Isn't there like 2 cuts in that or some such?
Yeah, the first like 25 minutes of the movie are like made to feel like one long take. It's actually, I think, like 3 or 4 with like very hidden cuts. But yes, a very long sequence and very
So it's
harrowing.
just ahead of that 1917 Birdman
Yes.
trickery. Yeah. Anyway.
I also had Gravity on my list for comp. So my equation in terms of how to characterize this movie is The Martian plus Gravity plus E.T. plus Arrival. Because of the communication, like language sort of aspect of it. Not definitely not in terms of the tone.
It did have it has scenes that definitely feel like a more comical version of Arrival. So that's a good comp. I will also throw out Castaway, just in terms of like someone who feels trapped in the place where they are, because I don't think this is giving too much away, because this is the opening of the movie. Is he wakes up on the spaceship not remembering why he's there or that he's there, and then discovering what's going on around him, and then being like, what happened, like what's going on. And so that feeling of like you're watching one person perform on their own being trapped has some Castaway vibes.
That's fair. Yeah. What if Wilson were alive? Is really what this movie asks, right?
It's big talk that Wilson wasn't actually alive. I don't know. I believe in Wilson. No, just kidding. But I will also say there are people who really don't like this movie. They're like aggressively against it. So I will just note. Well, I will just note there are people on the internet, so I can't speak to that. I can't speak to names for Jen to find them and hunt them down. But I will say, just to note, in case this is something that could trigger people for the like, it's not them core, as Jed said. There's a critique of people who would probably never listen to this show, who I'm assuming are 15 plus years younger than us, who are like, this movie's very millennial, and they mean that very derogatory. They're just like, oh, this is like, the tone of everything is very like, wow, epic bacon, like so like radical and cool. It's like internet posts from like 2010 are the jokes and are the tone and the like, so that happened, like that sort of thing. And they also tie it into the sort of Whedonisms of the Marvel, the MCU, and that they're like, if you are someone who hates Marvel movies for being jokey and samey, why would you like Project Hail Mary? So I'm just saying, Jen does not look agreeable to this, but I don't
approve of this. Yeah,
that's out there. And I will also say there are people who, and I say this not to judge them, I'm just saying it to note that they are there. There are people who are very upset that this movie does not have a man-made catastrophe, that it is a random external event that is causing the problems, and that therefore it is denying man-made climate change and is backing the corporate sponsors, because it's made by Amazon MGM Studios. It's backing corporations to pretend that they are not causing problems in the world. And like, so therefore this movie's bad, because it's sending a bad message that like, all we have to do is just like be really sciencey and try really hard in that millennial core way, and we'll figure it all out. And it's not actually a problem. Don't blame any companies about this. It's okay. Like, we're going to figure it out. And that's detrimental to society. Now, again, I don't think that's fair, but if that's the kind of thinking that you have when you go see a movie about a man in a rock on a spaceship, then you won't enjoy this movie.
All right. So point one in response to that is they should just read the book, because there is a climate scientist in the book.
Okay. I'm sure they hated the movie, that what they can't wait for is more time with the story. And the guy who's more millennial humor than the movie was. But yes, that's a good point.
Well, I would say the book is actually a little bit, it's not serious. It's still very humorous like The Martian, but I would say compared to the movie, it is less comic.
Okay. Interesting.
Like the interactions between the characters are less goofy in the way that they are in the movie. You know what I mean? Like I don't know if Greg agrees with that, but
I would largely agree with that, although there were many times. So to be clear, I listened to the audiobook, so I technically didn't read it. But so there could be some of the performance inflected in this. That I'm not trying to pass a judgment on anybody who counts audiobooks as reading, because I do too. But like some of the performance, at least in the audiobook, and the voice of the character, I can't deny the charges that it's millennial coded, right? And like that's the part of Andy Weir's voice that sometimes rubs me the wrong way, is it gets a little too much and you're like, I'm not sure this is a real human being. And so I think some of that is dialed back a little in the Gosling performance, and it also helps that it's Ryan Gosling, right, who's got oozing with charm, but is like movie star handsome charm, not like the funny IT guy who's in, fourth lead on a sitcom or some such, right? Like he just
Wow.
fits a
Shots
different mold.
fired at Richard Ayoade. Seriously.
I wasn't thinking of him, but yeah, shots fired. I guess I pretty much described him without thinking of him.
Well, so yeah, I would say that it's disappointing that people don't like this movie. I got if you go see my Letterboxd review, it doesn't really make any sense, but that was the genuine feeling that I left the movie with, is like one of being one of protectiveness, because I was like, people are not going to like that this movie is like sincere and hopeful, and they're going to think it's corny, and they should just go in a rocket ship and never come back. Like, I didn't like the idea of people coming after this movie for those reasons. But all the stuff that we're talking about that people might not like, the millennial factor of it, and the sentiment behind it that people might not vibe with, I do think is entirely by design. So there's, a bunch, Ryan Gosling. So what's interesting is I managed to avoid all the promotion for this movie until after I saw it. And then my feed is now flooded, which I'm not complaining about at all, flooded with Ryan Gosling, and Sandra Hüller, flooded with Ryan Gosling and Rocky. Like, everything is coming at me. And so I've seen a lot of clips of interviews at this point. And Ryan Gosling keeps telling people that what he loves so much about Andy Weir is that, we're the dominant science fiction mode for the past couple of decades has been more dystopian, sort of like he didn't name names, but like, like Dune and so like franchises that we like, but that are really dystopian and kind of bleak. But that Andy Weir gives an alternative to that, where it's like, well, what if the impending doom, or like whatever problems are in our future as a planet, what if it doesn't have to be that we give up and it's so dystopian? That's BT put in the chat that Ryan Gosling starred in Blade Runner 2049. Fair point. So maybe he didn't like being in that movie. Maybe it made him sad, and so he wanted to make this one. But the idea that like this gives an alternative narrative, it is kind of like a more of a fantasy, more escapist, I think, considering the world that we actually live in right now. But it's really nice to think about, well, what if the future is, I think this is a quote from him, what if the future is not something to be feared, but just something to be figured out? And that Andy Weir and this movie, right, being an adaptation of the novel, gives us that kind of like hopeful renewal of kind of like, well, what if we just need to science our way out of it? Right? And of course, can that be naive? Yes, of course. But it is nice to think about.
I hadn't thought of this till you were talking just now, but I do want to put this film in conversation with Fantastic Four, right? Which was that weird science-y alternative universe, but is essentially a very similar plot. And that weird second into third act moment where like the whole world just bands together to instantly create these well-spaced towers. Yes. Like there's a little of that spirit here, only it's much more realistic here. And like that's a weird part of that movie. I've been less positive on Fantastic Four, thinking about it since we reviewed it, when I was pretty positive. But I do think there is a baseline hopefulness that I do agree is really appealing. And I would say, PT is right to track that some people don't like this movie. This movie's doing very well. And I think a lot of people who are like I go to movies 3 times a year are seeing this as the kind of spectacle they need to go see. But I also think beyond the spectacle, it's like, it's fun, and people are wanting to feel that hopefulness and that fun and maybe laugh a little and not think about this. Jen, my follow-up question to you, because PT mentioned that he saw this with about 2/3 of an audience full of stray children who just wandered into the theater. And I bragged that I took my 11-year-old. Do you think your kids would be into this? Would you take your kids for a screening? Or I know they are a little tension averse, and this is a very tense movie at times.
That would be the thing that would hold me back. I do think that they would ultimately like it. They would love Rocky. That's the thing. Is like, they're my children. Like Gen core is going to be them core to a certain extent, just because it's genetic. But I do think that the idea of they don't like characters under threat. So I guess they don't like movies. But
you know what I mean? Without conflict, without any sort of strife.
Well, this is my gripe about kids programming now, is that I think it doesn't adequately prepare them to transition to watching movies, because most kids shows now are like, oh, nothing bad happens. Everything is like, we're working through our emotions, but there's no actual like physical threat to anybody at any point, or no one's coming to any harm. There's no dread or anything like that.
Kids so you want like Daniel Tiger's parents to be like held hostage?
Like... right, and Liam Neeson shows up, and then anyway, like so
you animals, yeah.
amazing. This is why we should not be in charge of children's programming. But so yeah, so the thing I hesitate about is, for one of my kids in particular, the idea of the world ending and people talking about the world ending would maybe not go over so well. So that's the thing I would hesitate. But because I didn't know about Rocky until I saw the movie, I had no idea that this would be a movie I could take them to. You know what I mean? I would consider it, but I don't know. Maybe it would be something we'd have to watch at home, so that in case it went south, I would have a backup plan. But yeah, I was gonna say, this movie seems so much more. You're right. Seems so much more family friendly than anyone had anticipated. It seems like.
Yeah, families are really into it. And I would say, according to the children in my theater, you can just get up and go to the lobby for like 20 minutes and then come running back down to your seat, and you don't care, because it doesn't matter if you missed anything, because that's just apparently a thing that a bunch of kids do in the movie theaters these days.
My kids don't do that anymore, for the record.
Okay, that's good.
I will complete the circle. I will complete the circle by saying that to make this really Millennium Core, this should slightly traumatize children, like E.T. did to all of us,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
Like so it really pulls it all together as a part of that. But hey, Jen, can you take us to spoiler mode? I'm tired of hiding certain facts from the listeners.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Let's do it. So if you have not seen Project Hail Mary and you do not want it spoiled, even more like we're not talking about Rocky or no Rocky spoiler level, right? We are now talking about actual things that happen in the movie that you probably don't know about, that you don't want to know about. Hit pause, go see the movie. As we've said, you'll have a great time. We highly endorse it. And then come back and rejoin us for the rest of the conversation. So Greg, what was the part of this movie that was so exciting and important to you that you wanted to start spoiler mode with it?
I tried really hard to figure out what the twist is, because Jen's always like, so and so died when we start spoiler mode. Sandra Hüller karaoke. How great, how wonderful was that moment? And our beloved Antonio, who is no longer a regular host, at least texted us to say she can do anything, which is exactly right, and the only valid reaction to that scene, which is really fun. So, yeah. So, I mean, there were a few big spoilers that we could actually talk about. I want to put a pin in the amnesia trope, and then the one maybe I want to ask, kind of knowing that Jen, this is actually, I didn't know this when I put it in the outline, but knowing that you had that pure experience, Jen, I'm jealous. So my first question is, did the marketing team make the right call, or should they have kept Rocky like a secret? I know this is hard to, judge after the fact, but I honestly can't make up my mind, because I knew I'd read the whole book. I knew going in what we were going to experience. And I also knew that it wasn't like it was a third act reveal. So I kind of understood why they decided, well, if this is the majority of the movie, we should just preview this. But I don't know. What do you all think about that question?
I'm of two minds about it, because on the one hand, you're right. Like, it was so thrilling to have to discover that in real time. But I kind of understand because, as we were saying just a few minutes ago before we went into spoiler mode, this is so much more of a 4-quadrant movie, and that's because of Rocky. So, like, if you don't market it with that, a bunch of those people are just not going to realize that they should go see the movie. So I understand it. And in terms of, like, I mean, in general, I think trailers have evolved over time to give away way too much, just in general.
Mhm.
This is not the first time we've kind of talked about this. We're like, oh man, like, I wish they hadn't given that away in the trailer. And I think that's happening because there's more desperation to get butts in the seats, right? Because of the way that theatrical is going. So I understand, given the context that we really, really want people to go see movies in movie theaters, that there would be kind of an urgency to sort of like do whatever it takes. You know, like we need the Ava Strat for theatrical, like like who's going to be able to get turn this around and save it from extinction. Yeah, but at the same time, part of me was like, wow, like the experience I had was so amazing. Like, I really wish other people could have that as well. And it's so hard because it's like this, you know, as I said, I saw this movie on a Friday. Miracle, I didn't see an ad with Ryan Gosling and Rocky standing next to each other. Like, but immediately when I got, like, the next moment I looked at my phone after I got home, it was all that. So, like, I just missed it. You know what I mean? Like, either that or my phone somehow knew that I had my ticket for that day. Like, and then was like, all right, cue all the promo. Like,
It's Gen Core.
Algorithm is, yeah, they saw me coming.
They have the Gen Core definition down better than you do. The one thing I will just note, only because I had this experience, which is very random, and I almost apologize for getting into it on the Project Hail Mary episode. But in talking about trailers, I did watch, I snuck and showed Jasmine From Dusk Till Dawn, which is the mid-90s Quentin Tarantino written, Robert Rodriguez directed movie. That I won't say what happens in the movie, and I won't say what recent movie led to this movie being discussed more often than it has been. But it's a movie that goes along feeling like a pretty regular, generic C-grade Quentin Tarantino 90s crime movie until about the halfway point, and then it totally changes into being something else. And Jasmine had no idea, and it was awesome because she had somehow missed the movie originally and didn't remember that I talked about it in conjunction with the more recent movie, because she was like, I don't know that movie. And I was like, squirreled that away to be like, okay, we'll just watch that someday after a few months go by. And so we watched that. She had a great time. And then I watched the trailer. The trailer shows everything. The trailer for that movie from 1996 is the entire sequence of everything that happens up to the third to last shot of the movie. Like, it's everything. And it's just like, isn't this what you want from a crazy Tarantino Rodriguez movie? And it's like, I guess, but also there's no surprises. If you watch the movie, there's literally nothing to surprise you. So while we do complain that they give away too much now, and they definitely do, it's not a new problem. It's been like maybe an ebb and flow issue, but it was certainly a problem in the mid-90s. All that being said, yeah, I think, Jen, you're right. I don't, I feel like it must have been a little bit of a struggle between marketing and creatives, where the creatives would want in the Mandalorian type way of being like, let's keep it a secret, and then as soon as it premieres, it can be like, bam, we're gonna hit him with Baby Yoda, boom, we're gonna hit him with Rocky, and the marketing team was like, you're nuts, because no, like, we're only gonna get Martian fans, and The Martian was a successful movie, and that's fine, but also the people who love The Martian might show up and be like, why is there a puppet rock? I have to pay attention to this? Like, I don't care, I don't want that. I want like a science guy being sciencey. And the people who want a puppet alien are going to be not know about it until maybe after the weekend it premieres. And then it's the weird, like, this movie you've heard about for a couple months, that's one movie, suddenly now has all these ads with an alien in it. And you're like, what's happening? So I think it was the right call. That said, I am also jealous of Jen to not have seen Ryan Gosling fist bumping the Rocky over a Dr. Pepper or whatever Instagram ad I saw. That was the two of them interacting to promote the movie like a month and a half ago.
I don't know. I'm pretty online, so I don't know how I missed this.
I mean, my guess is you saw something that was like Project Hail Mary and you're like, yeah, I don't want to hear about that anymore.
I am pretty good at quickly scrolling past stuff I don't want to see. That's true. But it might also just be because I hadn't watched the trailer. My algorithm hadn't been like, oh, give her more of that. And
That's
so, awesome. Yeah, so I don't know. Oh.
Well,
Now
in
I'm like, maybe I don't
my
watch trailers. Go ahead.
my algorithm is certainly flooded with book people, and book people have been like so excited for this to come out because this is just one of those books that caught fire on there. And there is, of course, in pure good old fashioned Star Wars style, there is a Lego set that spoils Rocky's existence as well.
Aw.
That's been circulating. It's a pretty great little Lego set. But
Aw.
I think you know I think you all have exhausted the question and with the right answer, which is just like this is the place we're in with movies. And this is a nice, I mean, I think I heard this is the best an original movie has done since Oppenheimer. And again, it's all those questions about what technically counts as an original movie and versus a property and so on. But it's really like exciting that there is this life in the movie theaters. And it was a full screening that I went to. I bought a ticket to go with a friend tomorrow night. And so Monday night I bought a ticket for Thursday night, and Thursday night was pretty much already down to the edges of the IMAX theater,
Ooh.
not only front row. But I was like, that's unheard of. So if my one small sampling size is to be indicated, I think we're going to see a pretty small drop off because I think the word of mouth is good and that's there. And I think you're right. I mean, Ryan Gosling is a major star, and he did have huge success with Barbie that I don't want to ignore. Because ignoring it would be like, I don't know, the Fall Guy. I think it's worth noting that he has some clout, but not perfect clout, and so. The big cardboard standees are all him, and you can sit with him in a chair and pose, and it's all really fun. But I think it was smart to bring the puppet into it. So my second question on the very spoilery note is I want to ask about the coma induction and the amnesia plot line. I will admit, so when I listened to this audiobook, I had just before this, I was catching up on my missing Dan Brown books, and I listened to Inferno, which has essentially the same plot. And if you saw the film Inferno, you saw this like the same plot the same plot device, I should say. Not sorry, Jen gave me a face. Yeah, Tom Hanks didn't go to another planet. It's but the main character Robert Langdon in those books, he wakes up in a hospital and then has to piece together why he got to that hospital over the course of the first hour of the movie. And so I had been through this experience twice in a row, and when I got to it in this, I was like totally like, this is so lame. Like, this is not how the mind works. This is not blah blah blah. So I was making things up. So it didn't work for me when I read the book. I will say it worked for me slightly better in the film. But my question is, do you overall think it was effective to have him wake up with no information and then slowly piece the story together, building to the final revelation, which is this guy isn't a hero, right? I mean, he is, but he isn't. And I think that's a really bold choice. And did that in general work for you?
My I had no idea, and I have not. As I did say in the chat, I wouldn't say I've missed any Dan Brown books because I don't particularly care for Dan Brown books. But so I didn't have the Inferno. I've also missed those Ron Howard movies. Again, apologies, Lord and Miller, for invoking him. But I will say this is the element of the movie I was the most like, I don't know. And it wasn't that I like the idea of where it started. I love starting there. And then I love that we got, these flashback bits. And I think like just conceptually in terms of receiving the information and having breaks in the story, I liked the idea that it wasn't like, I don't know where I am for whatever, 15, 20, 25 minutes, and then a 25-minute sequence on Earth in the past, 5 months ago, ... And then we get this sequence, and then we come back and we just have the rest of the movie. The thing I didn't particularly like, or I was curious about, maybe on a rewatch I will feel differently, is I never felt like we were getting the memories as he was remembering them, or that he was remembering something that, like, sometimes it was like, oh, he's remembering something and that memory is going to help him with like what he's doing now. But like by the time we got to like the second or third time that happened, I sort of stopped thinking that he couldn't remember everything. So then when it got to, oh, actually, Like he never wanted to be on this ship. Like he was desperately running away, trying to not be on this, and then he got kidnapped and tossed on against his will. That kind of had no impact to me. It was just sort of like when we cut back to him, it wasn't like, oh my God, like I can't believe this is what happened to me. He just sort of is still doing whatever it was he was doing. So it was interesting as something to reveal later in the movie. And I can see how it was a contrast to the heroic steps he was taking in the final sequences of the movie. But I didn't really feel like it just kind of felt like, oh, you, the audience, need to know this now. So we're going to give you this sequence, not something that came out of his character or affected his character in the present moment in the way that I kind of think it was supposed to. This is not a big deal. I don't really like care. It's not like, oh my God, then therefore B minus. But I think that, that was the least successful part of the movie for me, was that like the execution of that structural element. I kind of liked conceptually what they were doing, but I thought the execution didn't quite work as well. But maybe I missed the resonance or the connections when I was watching it, because it was a first time watch. I don't know. Jen, what do you think? I assume you think everything about it was great.
Well, so I'm kind of the opposite of Greg, where I feel like the structure made a lot more sense as an amnesia thing in the book, because they do spend more time in the book doing what you were saying you felt like is missing in the movie, in terms of like, oh, it's coming back to me. Oh, weird. Like they just don't have time, I think, in the movie to spend time doing that. But what was weird for me is that these flashbacks, because they're not really spending as much time leaning into he doesn't remember stuff, and these are memories and not just movie flashbacks, I think made it so that his memory loss seemed more inconsistent to me in the movie, because what's weird is that he never remembers his crewmates that are dead by the time he wakes up. And in the book, he remembers flashes of like what he liked about them. And then by the time he gives the eulogy and sends them off into space, it's like a funeral, that he's actually mourning them. Whereas in the movie, he says something weird like, I'm sorry I can't remember you, but you must have been very important to me, and it looked like a lot of people loved you. Like he's like going by their belongings instead of his own memories, which to me just seemed like a weirdly pointed way of being like he doesn't remember things, in a way that the movie, because it wasn't really dealing with that anyway, didn't have to. Does that make sense? Like, I feel like they could have easily just been like, he doesn't remember anything for the first like 20 minutes. And then once he's kind of like shaved and like readjusted, then he's good. Like, but I will say, for the reveal of how he actually got on the space station and how he joined the mission and not voluntarily, to me, that is critical to his character arc, because I think it's really important that that his relationship with Rocky is much more meaningful if we establish that he didn't have anyone to care about on Earth that would like inspire him to go on this mission to save, right? Like in the book, they make a bigger deal out of him being a teacher and thinking about his students, and they're going to grow up. There's this whole scene where he's like looking at them and thinking like, oh man, like if the world's falling apart in 30 years, if we don't fix this, then they're going to, like, how old are they going to be? And it's going to be their problem, and they're going to be the ones who are suffering. So there's a little bit more of that in the book as his motive. But in the movie, they do such a beautiful job of being like, he's alone and he doesn't really have anyone to care about, and nobody really cares about him. And so he's a completely expendable from the moment he starts working with Strad, right? Like where he's like, wait, am I here because it doesn't matter if I die? And they're like, he's like, wait, why are you talking to each other about that?
Yeah. Why do you have to consult?
Yeah, you have to consult each other about that. What? But I think the idea, because there's a line that, and I can't remember which character says it. It's one of the other crew members in the flashback says, like, because he says something like, oh, I'm not brave like you. I don't have it in my genes. And they're like, well, you just need someone to be brave for, right? And that ends up being Rocky. And it's really beautiful how that kind of evolves, and that when we cut back to him being so scared and not wanting to go on the mission, and because he didn't have anybody in his life that he could sort of like sacrifice himself for, that to show the contrast between that and him completely sacrificing his ticket home to go save Rocky is such a big change that is like a very powerful character development moment, I think, for me.
Yeah, I was thinking in maybe this is the most millennial thing of it all, speaking as a man surrounded by my action figures, which is like if E.T. is about a child learning to be an adult, then this is about a man child learning to be an adult, and it seems pretty fitting that you're right that does there. Yeah, I completely agree that last moment I'd forgotten from the book, just that it was not a voluntary mission, and so I thought it was really effective in the film, and there were gasps in my theater, and especially when he kind of does the silly like climbing on a countertop move to like get away. Like people were like kind of shocked at how small and silly he seemed all of a sudden, and I thought that was a really brave filmmaking choice to undercut your main character so dramatically. And then exactly as you just articulated, Jen, to bounce back a minute later and pull all the way to, kind of the most heroic act you can imagine, right? Which is sacrificing yourself, not for just a friend, but for someone completely different than you, right? And somebody who's you shouldn't feel invested in. That kind of optimism of, yeah, we could meet an alien species and it could go really well, right? Like, and we could be willing to save their planet at the expense of our own lives. So pretty beautiful moment at the end there. Well, before we wrap up spoiler section, let's go back to Sandra Hüller karaoke. Did anybody know this song? I did not know this song.
I vaguely recognize the song. I'm glad I didn't know going into the movie that she was going to be singing a song called Sign of the Times, because I would have thought it was the Prince song, and I would have then been disappointed that it was a Harry Styles song. I wouldn't say I like knew, but when the chorus hit, I was like, oh, I've heard this. I've heard this chorus before. I will say I was surprised in the movie. I did not know Sandra Hüller could sing so well. That's partly because apparently I have not seen, well, no, this is definitely that I have not seen the movie Tony Erdmann, which was one of her breakout movies, when apparently she also is a singer, or at least sings. There's a scene where she is singing in that movie.
And I think it's also karaoke, if
I think that's correct. Because there were people that were like, oh, okay. It's just like they put a Tony Erdmann scene in as a reference to her earlier movie, and sort of, putting that out there. Again, I almost feel bad because I feel like Jen's been in a nice little bubble where everyone loves this movie and there's no shade thrown towards it. But that was one of the little pokes of like, okay, congratulations. You made a reference. But I thought it was great. I thought it was really funny. I liked the idea of she's just like, fine, fun will commence. I will go and have fun for the next 3 minutes. And if that song's 3 minutes and 45 seconds, I'm cutting it off when the 3 minutes are over. Okay, the song is done. That's enough.
The phrase she says when she stopped, I think it's something like, and that is enough.
Yes.
And it's like, it's so good because you're like, it's so in character. And I found the scene really moving because it's like she recognizes the position that she's in as the person asking all of them to die for this cause, and the idea that like her, by the nature of her job and what she has to accomplish, she kind of has to be inhuman or cold and unfeeling, and that in that moment she chooses to become vulnerable with all of them. I think says a lot about her leadership, right? And it's like it was a boss move, in my opinion. And but then also like the story. I don't know if you either of you know the behind the scenes story about how this song ended up in the movie, but apparently, so I've pieced together across multiple interviews clips that apparently, and this part could be made up just for the sake of like good press, but apparently Ryan Gosling and like their trailers were next to each other or down the hall from each other, and Ryan Gosling overheard Sandra Hüller singing and was like, "What is that angelic sound?" and like followed it down the hall and was like, "It's Sandra! Oh my gosh!" Like, and was like, "You need to sing in this movie." And she's and then he asked her, "Can you find a song?" Because I think they knew that there was this karaoke scene. Can you find a song that you would want to that your character would want to sing in that scene? And then she keeps saying that she only had a day to find the song. Like in a way, she sounds irritated where she's like, well, I got this request at the very last minute. And so apparently she was going through a playlist of goodbye songs like with her daughter. and found the Harry Styles song. And she said that she knew the song, but she hadn't really listened to the lyrics particularly carefully. But then when she played it, being given this prompt to find the song for the scene, she realized how perfect the lyrics were for these characters, and that she basically went back to Ryan Gosling and said, here's the song. And he was like, oh, that's a Harry Styles song. Because he's a producer on the movie too. So he was like probably thinking, that's a big ask. Okay. And she said, it's this or nothing.
Yeah. Nice.
And then they made it happen. So again, Sandra Hüller, the GOAT. I don't know. It's like, she's so impressive. But yeah, I think the scene really, it's not just a big moment for her character, but I do think that it kind of lends it gives the movie its ethos. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, this is what this is all about. It's about this idea of, the end is here, and we all have to kind of cope with that, right? But yeah.
Well, I just want to say thanks for throwing shade on me, because since our episode, I've been chipping away at our New York Times 100 best films of the 21st century, and I only have 8 left, one of which is Tony Erdmann.
Oh,
so thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for making me feel bad
for
not getting to that one yet. I agree. I mean, I think when it started and, Ryan Gosling is sitting at the bar and like pulls down his glasses, I was like, what in the reverse La La Land are we having here? Just to shout out another one of his subpar movies. So I went into the scene being like, this is going to be too much. And the scene won me over. And I think it is her performance, right? Like, if and actually I would put the song choice as a part of that, even not knowing that backstory. Like, if this had been a big dramatic, right on the nose song, I would have been really mad, right? Like Ground Control to Major Tom or something feels like what they would do in a lesser movie. And I think it helped that I didn't know the song. And I don't know even if I can say it was vaguely meaningful or memorable to me in some way, but I just really loved it. And I do think it, cinematic masterpiece, Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones.
Mhm.
Padme asks Anakin, I thought Jedi weren't allowed to love. And he says, I have to save everybody, which, I have to, what's the line? You both know it, and I'm blanking.
It's like attachment is forbidden.
Attachment is forbidden.
And something else is forbidden, but like compassion, which I would define as like unconditional love or whatever, universal love is allowed.
So that makes me think about her and that character, right? That she has to be so cold and calculating because of this deep, deep love for all of humanity, that she can't focus on any one of them, including Ryland, right? And that's why she is eventually able to just kidnap him and throw him in a spaceship to another solar system, because she is so deeply rooted in the cause within this. So I thought, I mean, we'll get to Oscars watch eventually. I think it's a long shot considering how full a year we still have ahead of us. But like, I thought she did so much with her screen time that she continues to be someone I would always want to see. Her name will get me to a movie anytime now, certainly.
So 2 things about her. One is, when I started reading the book, as I said, I had managed to avoid all promotional materials, but I did know that she was the other big cast member, just because of like press releases of like who had been cast in the movie ages ago when they announced it. And as I'm reading the book, the second I get to the first Strat scene, I was like, this has to be Sandra Hüller. Like, who else could be playing this role? But what was interesting is that I think she brought even more humanity to the part than that's in the book. Because in the book, I think they lean into the comedy of the like deadpan delivery, which she's doing as well. And she's doing perfectly. Like, her comedic timing as she responds and is like, so what? Like, yes, we're going to conveniently not talk about the fact that if you might die in this situation all the time. But I think that in that scene specifically, where she is trying to say, look, I can bring you in warm, I can bring you in cold, right? Like, she's like, you can choose the easy way or the hard way. You can tell that on like her heart is breaking because she has to do this, because she really likes and respects him. But at the same time, I think there's a line in the movie where he says like, it must be so hard asking all these people to die. And she goes, it's actually not hard at all. right? Considering what the stakes are. And so it's her character is super interesting in that way. But she also, the thing I love about Strat is that you could tell that she got this job and that her talent is recognizing what people can do. Right. And so when she says, and this is again so hard because on the one hand, I do not condone her actions, right? What she does. But at the same time, when she says, I know this feels like a betrayal, but it's actually me believing in you, she sells it. Like, I believe her when she says that she's not just saying that to him, but that she actually feels that way, right? Because the whole movie, in the flashbacks, we see her from the second she shows up and is like, and he's like, why on earth do you want me on this project? And she's like, I've read your paper. Like, I know about you because you're an original thinker, because you kind of go against the grain, because, you're a teacher. Like, there's all these things about him that most people would dismiss, but that she can identify as like, no, this is the guy. And I really like that about her character.
She moneyballs him, right?
Yes.
Like you're right. Yay, Jen and I did a sports reference, and it's completely inaccurate because PT was quiet.
How can you not be romantic about space travel? I agree with all that. I think she did an excellent job. I was really happy as the movie unfolded after the karaoke scene that wasn't the beginning of a blossoming romantic relationship between the two of them, which, having not read the book, felt like, oh, that could be where this is going, and I don't really want that. Like, I kind of just, in that kind of competency porn idea of just like, I kind of just want them to be really good at their jobs and be working at stuff and focused on how important things are, and not get into all of that, even though, of course, I understand and respect that the AT&T girl and the pilot were going to have a little hookup at the karaoke night. That makes sense. That's totally fine. But yeah, I thought she was incredible. I really like that. I will say, I think I put the karaoke scene in second place in terms of music-based moments in this movie. Third place was related to the only other part where I was a little bit like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing in this movie and why is it happening? And that's after they figure out the bacteria from Adrian and they're like, this is it. This is the solution. And then it's like, well, I guess I'll start slowly moving home. And it's like, what about the probes? You got to send the probes, even if you're going back. Send the probes. Like, what are you doing? Like, they need the answer. What if something happens to your ship? So I was getting very nervous that something was going to happen because they didn't send the probes. Finally, when he decides he's going to go help Rocky, he sends the probes. 4 probes, John, Paul, George, and Ringo. I saw Ringo first. I didn't quite catch the other names, or I didn't connect them. I saw Ringo and I was like, oh, that's fun. And then they got the other names. And then they did the Beatles needle drop of 2 of Us, which was perfect for him and Rocky. I mean, maybe on the nose in terms of the follow through on the probe names, but great song for the 2 of them. As Greg said, I forget if you said this off mic or on, but I'll give you credit in case it was off mic. They shelled out. They shelled out for the For Real Beatles recording. They did not have the more a janky cover version. They went for the real deal. So I put that number 3, karaoke number 2. Number 1 is the initial. Now I'm remembering Ryland. What's his last name?
Grace.
I was thinking Gloria.
Hail Mary, full of grace.
Correct. So yes, Grace and Rocky when they first meet, and he's tapping on the window and he taps out the Close Encounters melody. The to that. That was a perfect little reference, which is very, very small, but of course I've seen a lot of the movie nerds picked up on that. So I successfully maneuvered my way out of Sandra Hüller to talking about the other music things I wanted to discuss. So apologies if people want to go back to her, but she was incredible. And there were some good little moments around music in this movie.
And the probes are called Beatles. Don't miss that as well.
Correct.
So that's a part of it as well. Yes. And I would put the Beatles needle drop in the everybody wants to rule the world Marty Supreme category, where it was probably a little too on the nose, but then you're like, oh, this is a good song, right? And the theater was really into it as a part of that. And don't forget there was a pretty good Scorpions track in there in the mix as well. So, but I want to take Jen. I'm pretending I'm host again. I think we should take PT's connection to Close Encounters as a way to take us into a rhetorical situation, and I'll throw you a question.
That's a good call. So the rhetorical situation is a segment in which we look at a film through the lens of our academic experience. to all three, we love you, Antonio, of our regular coach, our writing professors. So we like to have a section of the episode dedicated to making connections to our experience as scholars and teachers. In the teaching of writing, the rhetorical situation refers to any contextual factors that influence composing and interpretation. Greg, what did you want to talk about in rhetorical situation today?
I would take the moment PT referenced, which is a really nice little, like, let me just see if Spielberg got it right. 50 years ago, I think we're hitting the 50th of Close Encounters.
Next year.
Pretty close. Grace tries to connect with Rocky in that way. So I would say that this film seems to place itself into the kind of upper tier of space movies, that there are lots of these little cues that either directly or indirectly say, we want to be counted among those. So I would say there are direct references to Close Encounters and E.T. to, just kind of the obvious relationship, as I've alluded to a few times. And then there also just seems to be a lot of echoes. And I put Apollo 13 in that category because I agree with PT's assessment that there's this. I usually call it competency porn, as you have twice, PT. Sean Fennessy called it ingenuity porn, which to me is like an extra, like, turn it up to 11 on competency porn, where it's like, you're not just good at your job, but you've got that extra problem solving a bit to it. So there's a little of that Apollo 13 energy. And I would say the spaceship shots frequently reminded me of 2001: A Space Odyssey. That is a little bit because of the spinning mechanic to create the gravity, but just the silence to those shots, it all just felt a little 2001. So all of that is to say, first, you accept my premise, and do you think this rose to that level? I mean, it's a big Babe Ruth moment to point to the stands and say, count us alongside these movies. Did it hit the home run? Second sports reference.
I was going to say, that's intense.
Are we bringing the over ticket back? Is that what's happening?
I mean, it's opening days tomorrow. What are we doing? Like, of course. That's why you're infected. You don't even know. Sorry.
So I'm going to push back a little bit on what you're saying, because I like the question that you're posing, obviously, because it gives us an excuse to talk about all these other movies. But I kind of saw what you're describing as the Lord and Miller thumbprint on this movie, and the meaning that one of their defining characteristics as creators is leveraging pop culture references and references to other things in a way that's doesn't feel superficial, I guess. Like it seems like for a purpose, they always do a really good job, right? So if everything and I would lump their movies that they've produced into that. Obviously the Lego movie is a great example of this. It's like so chock full of references to other things. And even something like the Mitchells and the Machines that they produce, right, is also like full of, what I mean? Like, so that's kind of their style, is making sense of the world or looking at the world through references to other things. So I more saw it as like homage, as opposed in referential, as opposed to we're in the league with these movies, if that makes sense.
I think that does make sense. There's potentially something where Greg has put in that Solo alludes to Back to the Future. I would say Solo alludes to Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade by saying, let's have everything happen to this one guy in like 10 minutes. And then he grows up to be Harrison Ford. Anyway, I will. I don't, it may be unfair to burden this movie and the filmmakers behind it with the idea that they are trying to be like, aren't we in the pantheon? Aren't we in the like upper levels? And instead it does feel a little bit more like, wouldn't someone in this position be thinking about and be seeing the world around him or the universe around him through the lens of these pop culture experiences? So, if you were crawling outside of your spaceship trying to like, on a spacewalk, trying to catch something being thrown from another ship very slowly towards you, you might sort of like, even if we're not necessarily seeing it totally from Ryan Gosling's perspective, you would probably think about, oh God, this looks like 2001, or this looks like that right before the terrifying stuff in Gravity. Like, this is intense because you're people who you watched movies when you were growing up. So I see that. I don't think that you're totally wrong, Greg, that there is some degree of like, you don't make those references if you think you're going to be a much worse movie that doesn't deserve to have, be in the same conversation as them. I don't know if it gets to that level, like at this point, but I also think that's just partially because it takes time. I think that, something like all the movies that you mention, like, I don't know. I think back to, like, I was old enough to remember when Apollo 13 came out. I remember people being like, that's good. And like only over time has it become like, this is a masterpiece of the 90s. Like, we all need to bow down and think about it. And so I think that, it's probably in that sort of similar arc. It's not like immediately hitting and exploding as this is absolutely incredible. But I don't think it's like wrong for it to have made those references. Like, how dare you bring up Close Encounters, sir? That's not your lane. I think it's all totally fair. And over time, especially because it is very popular, people are liking it. If it's got that staying power, folks keep returning to it. It absolutely could be in the conversation in a way that another Ryan Gosling movie, First Man, hasn't really gotten there. We're going to talk about space, or Ad Astra, which is maybe a little more serious, man alone in space. I don't think those have really gotten up there into the pantheon of space movies for most people. Some people really love both of those, but I don't know.
I would say purely on how this movie made me feel. And obviously, I think it's become apparent that I'm the highest on this movie out of the three of us. But I would say that just purely based on how I felt while I was watching this movie, and how moved I was, and how emotional I got. I cried multiple times, I will confess. And it just felt magical to me. But then also, I think it is the version of those movies for this moment in a lot of ways, because the premise of it is a lot more about like humanity's extinction, and the idea that like we kind of know it's coming, and what are we supposed to do about it? Are we just supposed to be existentially dreading it, or can we actually be proactive and try to save humanity? To me, feels like a very 2026 type of space movie. Mm-hmm. Right. And that it's our not only our ingenuity, as you were saying, that's going to help us get out of that situation, but it's the kindness and reliance on others, and not being competitive and cutthroat and everything for me, but instead being tolerant and understanding and open-minded and collaborative, pro science. Like there's all these things that this movie is sort of saying, no, we can get back to that idea. We can, like, that is possible to help each other and lift each other up in that way. I think to me is very powerful. And like that, to me, that alone, because I think if the list of movies that you mentioned, they each have their version of that in terms of how they tap into the pathos of that particular historical moment. So that would be my argument for why. But that may be a premature judgment. Yeah, I don't know.
Let me try to tackle my own premise as well. I mean, Jen, basically what you're saying is just stop your crying. It's a sign of the times. We got to get away from here. But I will say, I think there's something inherent to doing, and this actually loops in PT's gravity comments, that if you're doing space, there's something inherently grand and spectacle based that puts you on a different tier. And so I tried to articulate the kind of God tier of space movies. First Man is also an excellent comp here, not just because of Ryan Gosling, but like that felt like it should have been one of those, right? And it just missed for whatever reason. Like people didn't want to see it, didn't like sad Neil Armstrong. But I do think there's a way in which these directors are consciously participating in that tradition. I think of when Rocky's ship first shows up and we see the spaceships moving in a totally new way, right? Like the little zip zap, like quick stops. And I, it's funny to think about how when you do this, it's like, okay, we can't be Star Trek and we can't be 2001 and we can't be Star Wars. And like, how do you fit into that? I I would argue that I think this is I think this is something more than those kind of pop culture references. Although I do agree with you all that, like, yeah, the character would have seen these things. And it's like in Avengers when they go through the time travel movies and they're like, well, okay, it's not a Back to the Future, it's not a blah blah blah, it's a hot tub time machine or what have you. So I would say that I think this wants to be one of those movies because it has something to say in the way Jen just articulated, right? That this is a moment where we are perilously close to the end of our planet. And wouldn't it be nice if we were optimistic and could band together in the ways that Jen just articulated? And I think the only way to deliver the kind of medicine is to give you the sugar. And the sugar is making a grand space spectacle. This is just a sign of the market right now, a sign of the times. But they're leaning into you got to see it on 70, you got to see it on IMAX, don't miss it on the biggest screen possible, and all of that, which is just what movies have to do these days. But I think this is a film that earns that it does look big. And as much as the sound matters, the silence matters. And so I would answer my question by saying how you get into that God tier is you say something really meaningful, a really powerful theme, probably something about humanity and who we are, while also delivering on that spectacle. And that helped really well. In case you missed the story because your algorithm was hiding this content, I don't want to leave the topic by not saying Steven Spielberg came up with the Close Encounters reference. So they wanted to they wanted to do a reference to his movie, and they I guess Amy Pascal, she of Spider-Man movie fame, knows Steven Spielberg well, so they sent her to go like talk to him about the movie. And Lord and Miller were like talking about what the movie was going to be and how the alien talks in music. And Spielberg said, "Oh, it'd be really funny if he reaches out to him and uses the Close Encounters music." So Steven Spielberg delivers.
Okay, it's a great idea, Steve.
Yep. And coming soon to a theater near you, Steven Spielberg returning to this space as well, which is really exciting to think about. Yeah, if you will. So that's very exciting as well. I think that's all I have to say about it, but I will just say, like, more, like, I like that a filmmaker these days, I think we're going to see Nolan swinging for the fences. Like, we could debate these comments, but Ryan Gosling said something essentially that's like, when we complain that people don't go to the theaters, part of the problem is we're not creating things that make you want to go to the theaters. And like, I think one way out of this current situation, while still giving me my small, quiet Antonio movies, is to make these big original spectacles that get people excited. So more of that.
Agreed.
Yeah, well said. So the other thing that you had under before we leave rhetorical situation is the marketing for this film, which we've said I've mostly missed before I saw this movie, but I have seen lots since. But really emphasizing the practical effects and that the fact that Rocky is a puppet as opposed to just a CGI character. That I believe so. I linked in our outline. I don't know if you've had a chance to see it, but Variety had a story that there was no green screens used. There were VFX shots. So I guess like Lord and Miller had to kind of come out and be like, well, we didn't mean that we didn't use any visual effects. Like, are you crazy? But that they didn't film anything with green screen. Everything had a practical background. Because they built so many sets, like for like the ship is a full set that they made, so they didn't need green screen, but he did. And so it sounds like the only kind of CG stuff would have been kind of the blending or the integration of, say, the Rocky puppet into the scene, or like if like there's a wire hanging down that's not supposed to be in the scene, that they like erase that kind of stuff to kind of blend everything together. So this is a long build up to saying, like, do you think that's going to impact the success of this film? How much is it contributing to kind of its overall narrative? Do you feel like that really makes a difference in terms of your own enjoyment of the film? What do we think about that?
I'm a practical effects enjoyer. And I will say, I don't know if I grasped when seeing the movie, like how much he was a puppet that was there but it felt like this is very tactile. Like if this is CGI, this is incredible CGI because he looks like he's really there. And then finding out that, again, almost all the time that is what it is. Maybe he got CGI'd a little bit, or he got cleaned up along the edges to remove a stray person or a stray wire. That makes sense. I do think there's something to the tactile experience that you can read that is, it doesn't necessarily mean it can't be CGI. I think about like Gollum in Lord of the Rings, and it's sort of like, well, like that he's totally CGI, but there was Andy Serkis was there, like doing those things. The other actors were interacting with him, and then they changed it later, as opposed to, with all due respect to our beloved George Lucas, the scenes of Terrence Stamp just talking to a tennis ball in a big blue room and then being like, I don't know what's happening. Like, okay, well, I'm really glad to be here. You're paying me in cash, right? And that's, I think there is something different to that. I don't know the degree to which that is a like strong marketing move, like how many people care about that. Although I do wonder if right now, with the worry, concern, backlash around AI, the sort of the hype cycle that we're in the high speed spin of around AI, if the idea of like, there wasn't as much computers used in this is getting people to be like, oh, that's great. And for us older types to be like, oh, this is like ET, like because they made an actual like thing that was ET, that was like, a little animatronic, or a small person waddling around in a costume, that is going to like bring people in. So I think marketing wise, very smart to mention it. I appreciate they had to make the correction about like, well, wait a minute, we didn't say there's no effect. We only meant the green screens, and so that's good, because then I understand there are VFX people that are like roll their eyes a little bit at like, oh yeah, everything's practical. Forget about all the like color timing I did and all the like clearing out satellites in the background or telephone wires. Thanks, guys. But so I do think it's important to balance it. I think there's something nice to it being practical. I don't know the degree to which people connect with that necessarily. That might be a movie nerd thing. But I can see why at this moment, again, to sort of Greg's point and Jen's point, both your points, that it's very like saying things and relating to things in 2026, regardless of how much they meant it, because it's taken them years to make this movie. That happens to be, I think, a winning marketing element, that it's a little more practical when it's a story about humanity, not necessarily, fighting against tech, but just humanity being at the forefront, that having a practical thing that is inhuman, but is a character you're going to empathize with, I think is really smart.
So I want to agree with you and position myself as also a practical effect enjoyer. And I like when things are real. And I do think it primarily aids performance, as you alluded to. But I'm going to come out against practical effect discourse. I'm sick of this, right? And this is primarily being too online, but like I wouldn't even necessarily call them fan bros, because the majority of times I hear a take like this, it's 100% wrong, right? They're like, oh, this is all CG garbage. And then it's like, oh, wait, that's not CG. Oh, I didn't know. And blah, blah, blah. Like there's like a set of commentary that's, I would say came up primarily after the Star Wars prequels, that like anything fake is not real. And, everybody loved The Mandalorian, and then they showed us how the volume worked. And then everybody's like, well, the volume is garbage, and I always knew it was fake. It's like, no, you didn't. Like, so I think I'm resentful that this film is participating and giving oxygen to that discourse, even though I do think, particularly on the Rocky puppet, it is worth showcasing that is very real, right? And I think for me personally, I've landed in a place where it seems like the right answer is something real with digital enhancements. We talked about this a little bit back to the creator and those special effects they managed in that film, that they would give you something real, and then they build off of that. And Andor did this very well in Star Wars land, where it's like, okay, we went to this weird concrete staircase in a housing development in London, and then we put like a spaceship landing in the background, or we extended it off and beyond in some way, and that works just really well. I think this movie, it's incredible how far they went with this. The directors were talking in an interview I listened to about how they not only built the set practically, but then the crew also rotated it 90 degrees when the ship transformed. So everything is built so that it's all there, and they didn't kind of fake that. And so when it's like, okay, now we're going to do a bunch of these scenes, go in there, lift the set up, rotate it, and go. And the crew apparently was saying like this is the most complicated thing they've done. Like it was harder than doing like a ship that sails on the ocean or things like that. So I think it's really impressive, but I would like movie discourse to move away from this. With all due respect to VFX artists who are very beleaguered in all regards. Actually, I think I'm defending them in some ways, but I think the best compliment is just to not talk about it. Like like make it about the image you create, however you can get there, and that's the achievement. Not, well, we did it, but we did it practically, and blah blah blah. And yeah, so I'm tired of the discourse. This is me just rejecting the internet on my podcast.
I agree with that's so funny. I agree with you. I think the like little twist I would put on what you're saying is that I think what's more valuable than just saying we did everything practically, or pat yourself on the back kind of thing. I think what's more valuable is actually all the stuff they're doing to kind of talk about how Rocky is being performed. And so James Ortiz is the puppeteer, and they originally had actually just hired him to be the main puppeteer operating the Rocky puppet. But then when they were rehearsing and kind of working stuff out with him and Ryan Gosling was like, you are Rocky. Like why aren't we just using you to do the voice also? And there's a really sweet, I don't remember who it was with, but there was a really sweet interview with James Ortiz where he was like, this is the first time all of me has been invited to a job. In a way that was like, oh, like this, because he had been a puppeteer and mainly in a lot of like stage plays, it sounded like, and kind of like, kind of piecemeal work here and there. And that when he went to Neil Scanlon, that he was like, so how is this relationship going to work? Like, what are the boundaries? And Neil Scanlon was like, you are Rocky. I am just going to like craft the thing. We'll figure out the character together through the crafting of him, but that he is ultimately your character. And the craziest thing though is that, so apparently James Ortiz operates Rocky's torso, and then there's like 2 or 3 other people who are operating his legs. And that, so they have to, he said that he was constantly improving and kind of trying to be in sync with all of them, but at the same time riffing off of Ryan Gosling. So the way he described it in the interview that I was watching is that he was basically for the whole movie trying to pat his head and rub his tummy at the same time, because he was like trying to like go between all of these people and be like, okay, how do we make this one coherent performance? And I just think that's super cool that like that's it. Like as a Muppets fan, I'm like, this is great.
It's making me think of the behind the scenes Return of the Jedi stuff where they're showing the like 11 people involved in Jabba the Hutt. And it's like, I do one arm, I do the other arm, I'm doing the eyes, I'm doing the mouth. One person's hand is the tongue. And they're just like, we kind of just have to react to like what is happening in the scene and hope it all makes sense. And there's a little person who's just turning the end of the tail sitting there. This is why, look, I don't think that we need to already after one episode beg Antonio to come back, but there's just a lot of Star Wars references when he's not even like
we're out of control
to be around. So it's going to be tough.
Part of it, this is a movie in space. We haven't even mentioned that Ryan Gosling is going to star in a Star Wars movie.
It's true,
right?
And if we're talking about an optimistic sort of human forward science fiction movie that's a big blockbuster hit that comes during a time of national strife, Star Wars is a pretty good comparison to a movie like this, just in terms of like how it's existing in the context that it exists, which we all do.
And Neil Scanlon did the creature work on all the Disney era Star Wars films. I think I know when I said that name a few times, everybody on the Zoom chat was like, yes, our good friend Neil Scanlon, who has shown me cool monsters at Star Wars Celebration. But for listeners who are what do you call them, normal people, then that's also a Star Wars connection.
So I do want us to get to Oscars watch. The last thing I'll say before we leave rhetorical situation, because it is supposed to be about our experiences, teachers and scholars. This is huge win for teachers, this movie. I'll just say, and I think that, like, you know, beyond the joke of like he is a teacher, a washed up PhD who becomes a teacher, right? Like, my jokes aside about how that hits close to home or whatever, I would say that to me, Grace is able to go on the journey as a character that he is and actually become the hero that Strat thinks he is before he does, because he's a teacher. Like, a large part of his, as much as the science that he knows is part of his success in getting the job done, I think his skill set as a teacher, especially in terms of being able to communicate and reach out to and get on a level with Rocky. Like, I'm thinking of when he's like, you still need okay, I'm going to still do the puppet show, I guess. Right. Like the scenes where he's kind of trying to communicate, I think is really, really speaks to the idea that, like, it can't just be a scientist. It can't just be an astronaut. Can't just be like a soldier or whoever we think would be right for something like this. Like, shout out to the teachers of the world that we need you, right, in a time like this. So
you may need to be drugged and dragged away,
right?
But we need you.
But you'll be able to do it. You'll do great. Well, we didn't even mention Carl through this whole thing.
Carl was great.
So great. And yeah, from The Bear, right? That actor was really great. I just also wanted to shout out in that regard, when the cheesy science t-shirts started, I was like, this is too much. And then I thought about every time I see math professors at my university come in on their off days from teaching, they're wearing shirts like that, right? Like, I remember the element of surprise, and it was AH, and I wear this shirt periodically with the periodic table on it. It's like, yeah, that's exactly the kind of thing. I mean, I say that as if I don't have a Call Me Ishmael t-shirt in my drawer and things like that. So I'm also just as guilty.
It also made sense once you realize, oh, he didn't pack those shirts to go into space. He packed those shirts to go into the research lab where he thought he would be there for X number of weeks, and then he gets to go home. So he's not like dressed for interstellar travel or potentially interspecies contact. So yeah, that was very fun.
All right. This is Oscars watch, I feel like, is going to be an exciting one. I can't wait to see.
That's costume design. We were just talking about it.
Now I'm just picturing La La Land, because that fits this music.
True.
Did you see that Ryan Gosling
recreated
the La La Land pose with Rocky? It was great.
I like that. I only saw La La Land once, so what I picture is the one scene from La La Land in the Nicole Kidman AMC video. That's the only part of La La Land I really have committed to memory.
So this is so early in the season, it seems crazy to be talking about the Oscars chances of a movie like this. However, in recent past, Sinners being the most recent example, it does, and Everything Everywhere All at Once is the other big one. It does seem like the early in the year big blockbustery release can potentially become a mainstay in the Oscar race. So do we think this movie has that potential?
I feel like it was Chris from the Prestige Junkie podcast had a good point, which was like, if we end up with 10 Best Picture nominees that don't include this, it's a really good year because we had 10 better movies. That, you know, I don't think that necessarily it's going to have, again, we'll have to see what happens. But I wouldn't at this point predict that it would have the Everything Everywhere or Sinners of like, and it's a front runner and it could win Best Picture and it's going to win, 4 to 7 Oscars. But I feel like this could very easily have the F1 Top Gun Maverick blockbuster slot, pretty locked up in the Best Picture area. I shouldn't say that I could have it locked up. I feel like that would, no one would be surprised at this point if it's like, yeah, it got a Best Picture nomination and then it got, a few technical awards. It got, maybe got some visual effects, maybe a cinematography. Speaking of Greg Fraser, although somehow me watching a video about Greg Fraser talking about how he arranged the oneer after Ryan Gosling wakes up was what led me to realize he's not the cinematographer for Dune Part 3, which got me a little upset, but it's somebody else because he was working on this and now he's going to something else that's important. But anyway, that's I feel like it can have some Oscar buzz, and there's some people who are already like pushing Ryan Gosling as like, couldn't he be a blockbuster actor? He has to carry such a big load in this movie, as it's like so much a solo performance or solo plus puppet. So it could be this movie could disappear from the Oscar conversation by September, or it could be one of those ones that reemerges once once we get over there. I don't know. Craig, what do you think?
I think this is not everything everywhere all at once, but it's also not Mickey 17. I think there's often like, something's coming out in March lane now that is exciting. And, I think sometimes we guess what that will be and it is a big hit and sometimes we don't. It does have it's like a month earlier than Sinners, right? Sinners was early, but Sinners is, the end of April, that it came out just ahead of blockbuster season. I like that formulation you said, PT, of if this is not one of the 10 best picture nominees, then what a good movie year. I think to me, though, this feels just a shade more blockbuster summer hit than it does Oscar movie hit.
Yeah.
In that, as much as I like some of these social messages we've talked about, I don't think it has a lot to say. I think it's fun and it's spectacle, and that's great. I see visual effects. I see score. Daniel Pemberton's score is pretty good here. It has, I love the detail. I heard the directors point out that there are children clapping as the percussion in the score because that's supposed to be his class still supporting him and thinking of him while he's out in space, which is very endearing. I think, though, if Ryan Gosling is one of the 5, then we've had a very bad movie year from here. Just thinking about Dune Part 3, thinking about The Odyssey, thinking about, on and on, some movies we haven't even heard about yet. Maybe this is the moment to say next week, hype draft next week. Whoop, 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 whoop. Hype draft time, because we'll be talking more about these races. But I do think, I think it's a long road for any acting nominations, which is okay. That it doesn't mean those are bad. This is a bad for performance. Sandra Hüller, best supporting. I mean, I'm here for it, but it would have to be a pretty bad year between now and then. I think. What do you think, Jen?
For Sandra Hüller specifically, what I have heard is that she has quite a few projects in which she is more the lead coming out in the next year or two, and so that her role in this, because it is a huge jump for her in terms of like, this is the most mainstream American movie that she's been in, right? So a lot of people won't know who she is, and now they will. So that this could give her that boost for she wouldn't get nominated for this, but this would help her get nominated for whatever she comes out with next. Which forgive me, I don't remember what it is, but.
I luckily I did look it up while we were talking about her earlier, because I was like, I bet this will come up around Oscar Watch. She has 2 movies that are coming out. One of which is called Rose, which is an Austrian movie where she is a mysterious soldier who is a woman disguised as a man. And things happen. It's in the 17th century, and apparently she's very good in this. And so that could be an international movie that comes out and gets some traction. Could be similar to the last time she got nominated. She is also the second listed performer after Tom Cruise in Digger, the new Inarritu movie, which is coming out and presumably will be a big Oscar play. So yeah, between those 2, it's possible that she could get either a lead actress in Rose or supporting actress or lead actress. We don't really know what happens in the movie Digger. So she could get one of those performances, and then it could sort of be, I'll do respect for invoking his name, but sort of like when Timothée Chalamet was nominated for A Complete Unknown, it's like he also had Dune Part 2. Like, isn't that something? Like, he had these 2 big movies this year, it's definitely something that's played out in the past as well. When sometimes you're like, wow, this person's in this great movie from the past, like they must have won an Oscar for this, and it's like, no, they won an Oscar for some other movie, like Grace Kelly not winning for Rear Window, or Dial M for Murder. She won for the third movie she made that year that was not a Hitchcock movie. So I forget what it was, The Country Girl, something like that. Anyway,
That
so
sounds
yes,
right.
I feel like she could get nominated, but not necessarily for this movie.
Does that mean Zone of Interest 2 got pushed to 2027? No. Okay.
Well, they're making it now, and I don't mean I don't mean they're filming it. I mean they're making it now, and they'll make the movie in like a decade.
Oh God.
Can I just say that while she looked great, I was extremely disoriented for the first few minutes where she showed up because of her hair, and I was just like, Sandra Hüller doesn't have long hair. What is happening right now?
That's not
And
like
I had
Sandra.
also when I read the book and I pictured her, I also pictured her with the Zone of Interest haircut. So I was like, like what's happening? But it worked. It worked.
Well, so it sounds to me like, Jen, you're making the case for, I would say the recent example I always think of is Hong Chow, right? Like being so popular in The Menu while also in The Whale, which is a movie that existed. So it kind of helped her get that nomination. Very smart.
The only thing, because I agree that, like, you know, it's so usually when a movie comes out this early and we do an Oscars watch, it has to be, the big disclaimer has to be like, look, we don't have anything else to talk about right now in terms of the Oscars. So like, you know, I the core memory I have of this as an example is like Greg and I talking about Air and being like,
oh yeah,
screenplay nom, maybe. And then that in retrospect, that seems so silly. But
we also did that for Sinners, though, and we totally undervalued how many nominations Sinners would get. So,
true.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the thing I would say prematurely and with nothing else to compare it to at this point is, because I think you're right that, like, I can't imagine Best Actor won't be super competitive. And then, oh wait, didn't I send you that screenshot of some crazy outlet had like, here's our best actors, and it was all all actors from sci-fi movies, and I was like, that just can't happen. Have you never watched the Oscars? Like, what is happening right now? And it was Ryan Gosling in this. It was Timothy Chalamet in Dune, and it was probably Matt Damon in The Odyssey, and it
Josh
was
O'Connor
like
in
Josh O'Connor in Disclosure Day, and I was like, this is never going to happen. What are you doing? Anyway, but I do think the one thing that is going for Ryan Gosling here is that his face is like 90% of this movie, right? And the fact, and we have seen strong ties between frontrunners, like thinking about Mikey Madison and Honora, right? Like between actors who are like the movie and that having a better shot. I would just say that my Oscar reel for him would be when Rocky tells him that he can have some of his fuel.
Yes.
And first of all, the camera work in that scene, incredible, because it kind of swings around so that his back is turned, and then all of a sudden we see him crying. It destroyed me. It was and then he's like people just say they're okay with it, like they don't actually mean it, like somehow.
I thought you were really funny. It was a lie. You just say that.
Yeah,
that's the thing you just say. Like, it's so funny.
That's very good.
But anyway, so that would be my Oscar reel for him. But yeah, I agree that like we have so much time. The last Oscar's barely finished. So like, I think there's probably too much time for him to actually make it in next year, but you never know.
I will just reiterate potentially cinematography only because of Greg Fraser, mostly that could be one that sneaks through, even if some of these other ones do fall by the wayside. Cinematography loves to have a couple weird ones mixed in.
F1.
F1.
Right.
I mean, yeah, there you go. But I will say that what Greg Fraser is doing, he did this, and then didn't go to Dune Part 3 because he is, of course, shooting all 4 Beatles movies for Sam Mendes. So
I didn't realize that.
I'm
even more hyped for those now. What?
Yeah, they're gonna look good. They're gonna look
Greg,
good.
I think you're thinking of editing or visual effects.
Sorry,
for F1, right? Not cinematography.
You're right. You're right. I was thinking of editing.
I'm thinking of a couple years ago when Empire of Light and Bardo got into cinematography. Everyone's like, what?
Yeah.
Like post-hype movies. So if this becomes a post-hype movie, but it still has that technical support, that could be where it's rewarded, where maybe like production design, they're not going to reward the building the spaceship set, but they will reward shooting around it and moving through it. And I don't know.
Remember when Nosferatu got an Oscar nomination for cinematography?
Remember when Werewolf comes out in December? And
yes. Hey, don't spoil the hype draft.
Save it for the hype draft. You guys are dropping too many titles. Too many titles in the last 5 minutes.
I have a question for you. Do you think in an Oscar context, does Rocky count more as a visual effect or more as a production design?
Production design, I would say, right?
I think visual effects. I think practical effects are visual effects because they were before there were computers, and so I don't know why we wouldn't necessarily have it. Like before CGI, visual effects were still awarded, and they were practical effects. So I would say practical effects, but I would also be fine if it got lumped in with production design if that got some momentum.
But when was the last time a movie that heavily relied on practical effects got a visual effects nomination?
Star Wars: The Force Awakens.
Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I mean,
that's stretching a lot of definitions there.
On all sides here. Don't think I'm not looking it up right now and just seeing the list. I mean, The Lost Bus. There was a lot of things, and then Fire. Does that count?
Right, but it got nominated for The Fire, which was
did get nominated for The Fire. Yeah, it's true.
So this is my point, because I feel like I feel bad if I get this wrong, but I believe Oppenheimer didn't make it into this category.
It did not. Tenet won though in 2020. So was it Tenet? Because I know Nolan loves practical effects.
That's an interesting one to try to consider what it's getting nominated for, right? Like there's some clear CG elements and there's a lot of weird stuff.
But enough about the plot.
Anyway, so that was just my like head scratcher of like, are Oscar voters going to be confused about what categories to nominate this movie in?
I mean, it will be very interesting if we get to the point where that is something where we have to worry about it. It's like it's going to get one or both of these, but we don't know.
Yeah.
When I think Greg's point is probably stronger. That it might be like, what a fun movie that came out. Anyway, here are the Oscar nominees, and it's not really related.
Yeah, I'm at the risk. I'm not going to drop the titles because Greg just warned us that we're spoiling our hype draft. But I will say that, like, to me, I agree. Project Hail Mary seems to an obvious pick for the F1 spot, but there's also going to be a lot of competition for that kind of spot.
Yes,
I think at least 3 to 5 movies off the top of my head that are easily potentially taking that spot.
I'm holding out some hope that some of those movies are like The Sinners. Where it's like, this is a blockbuster, but it's actually really good. Like it's so good, it's in that higher tier than the blockbuster slot. You know what I mean?
I don't know if I like what you're implying, but okay.
Well, I mean,
I'm kidding.
I don't know if Project Hail Mary, for the thematic reasons we were talking about, is going to get to that, view from the Academy, not necessarily from normies and movie lovers like us.
Well, and I will just drop that, this is an interesting transition moment in our movie year, and we are doing hype draft next week because I think we're starting to get peaks at a lot of the like traditional summer. The trailers attached to this in my theater were awesome. Like my son and I were so excited. We got to see a lot of, I'll drop some. We got the Mando and Grogu trailer right on the big screen. We got the new Spider-Man trailer that had debuted like 2 days before this on the internet. It had really turned around, and Dune 3, all of which have hit the internet. And so, we joke in our long take review cycle that we try to cover both. And I do get to this moment where, like, in March, I'm like, yes, give me some silly popcorn stuff. And then in September, I'm like, give me something real because I'm sick of this. But it feels good to be in that moment in our cycle again. And I'm looking forward to an exciting hype draft. I've really been taking notes this year. We got a lot of options out there.
Inside all of us,
sad you all remembered Digger existed, because I almost had that in my back pocket as like nobody else will remember Digger exists.
Please,
come on. Inside all of us are 2 Gregs. The don't talk about any movies because of the hype draft, and here are all the trailers I saw behind my screen.
Let me list named all the movies I was going to say.
It's perfect. It's also like 2 a.m.
I know. I was going to say, considering that.
I just want to note attached to the 70mm print was the trailer for Masters of the Universe, which I'm not worried about anyone else drafting that in case it's going to come up at the hype draft. I could save that for the last round if I really want to take that. Also, it doesn't look very good.
It looked bad.
I like the game they play on the town where the last step is they give each other a stinker of a movie. Like I would maybe offer you Masters of the Universe to sync your roster.
Yeah, that's fine.
Within that, we'll say maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it'll surprise us.
I don't know. All right.
All right, Greg. We cannot watch you sleep. So we need to let you go. Apologies if that's what you were expecting to happen during this recording. Tell people, our folks on the internet, tell our listeners, tell our listeners, those people that might listen to our show, tell them where they can find you.
People can find me on the internet, on Letterboxd primarily, at EyonCanon, EYEONCANON. Also, a little bit on Instagram. I'm less and less there because that platform is becoming more and more terrible. PT, where can people find you?
Hey, you can find me on Letterboxd at PT McNiff, PTMCNIFF. I am technically also on Instagram, but I haven't posted anything in like 3 years due to the aforementioned terribleness. That said, you could still find the show on Instagram if you still love it. We're there at the Long Take Review. The same handle. You can follow us on Threads and Blue Sky. You can follow us at LTR Pod on Letterboxd. You can email us, thelongtakereview@gmail.com, or you can just follow us wherever you get your podcast, wherever you're listening right now. Subscribe, add, plus, heart, whatever the mechanism is. Please add the show, listen to new episodes. You may or may not have heard the hype draft is probably our next episode. That's our goal. So that's coming up next week. Jen, where could folks find you besides 3 hours ahead of Greg, but somehow more delirious than he is?
Right. People can find me rolling around in my hamster ball on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at Sopchakchai, SOPCHOCKCHAI, and on Letterboxd at Qui-Gon Jen. We didn't quote Rocky lines nearly enough during this episode.
Just two big thumbs down for this movie. two big thumbs down.
Amaze. Actually, the real way to end is to say, time go.
It's time to go.
Thanks for listening. You can follow The Long Take Review on Substack at thelongtake.substack.com. Subscribe for free, and you'll be the first to know when a new episode drops. You'll also receive occasional written reviews of new Star Wars and Marvel.